Welcome to the Youth Engagement webinar. Thank you for joining us today and showing interest in youth engagement regarding tobacco control. Whether it's at a local level or state level, we can all make a difference in the lives of the youth we work with by supporting them and encouraging them. The webinar is all about learning tips and tricks from one another. Please be sure to mute your audio to eliminate background noise. If you have a question, please save it for our designated time for questions at the end. We'd like to know who is joining us today, so please type your name, state, organization, and email in the chat box, especially if you would like the link of the recorded webinar and our contact information emailed to you next week. We have a lot to accomplish today, so I want to give you, I want to get time for your questions. So let's get started. 7 states have partnered together to make today's webinar happen. The webinar is hosted by the Division of Tobacco Use, Prevention, and Control with Iowa Department of Public Health, and the following states are also represented: Colorado, Kansas, Montana, Nebraska, North Dakota, and Oklahoma. To begin, each presenter is going to introduce themselves and share about their youth program in the state. Then the specialists will take turns answering a few set questions, and the remainder of our time together will be open for questions from you all. So I will start us off. So if you don't know, I'm Jill Wright. I'm a community health consultant and youth coordinator at the Division of Tobacco Use, Prevention, and Control with IDPH. The youth program here is called ISTEP, which stands for Iowa Students for Tobacco Education and Prevention. It was created in 2011 and is still going strong today. So simply put, ISTEP is a youth-led movement, or it's a statewide movement made up of 7th through 12th grade youth who want to step up and take action against tobacco. So ISTEP has local and state leadership opportunities. The local leadership opportunities include creating or joining their local ISTEP chapter. And most chapters are formed at schools, but they can also be formed by another group outside of the school that's already established. The purpose of chapters is to raise awareness to peers and community members of the dangers of tobacco through street marketing events. At the end of last year, we ended up with 81 registered ISTEP chapters. So youth involvement in ISTEP can also have state leadership opportunities, such as serving on the ISTEP Executive Council. The council consists of youth throughout the state that make decisions on campaign goals and objectives and ensures ISTEP stays youth-led. The council has an appointed president and 3 youth members who serve on our Commission of Tobacco Use, Prevention, and Control. Each year, the council plans 4 street marketing events and an annual ISTEP Summit. The summit is a one-day event for youth to come together to learn from one another and discover even more ways to take action against tobacco. For this year's street marketing events, the council planned Chalk the Walk for Red Ribbon Week, ISTEP Strong pledge banner for Gasso, Vape Free Valentine for Valentine's Day, and a litter pickup for the 50th anniversary of Earth Days. And if you want more information on those, it's on iowastep.org. So with all that being said, my role as the youth coordinator is to support the council and the youth members. So I listen to their ideas, provide them resources to make them happen, and then communicate the details to chapter advisors and our contractors. So in a nutshell, that is ISTEP. So I'm looking forward to hearing from the other youth specialists today, and we're going to hear from Heather in Colorado next.
Hi everyone, I'm Heather and I am the program manager of Uprise, and I'm here with the grants manager for the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, Sharon Tracy. We are excited to share about Uprise today. Uprise is Colorado's social justice youth tobacco control movement. In my life, I've created dozens of youth leadership groups and engaged teens in local, state, and federal policy advocacy. I recently received my PhD from the University of Denver's Graduate School of Social Work, and finished my MPH in 2010 from the School of Public Health. I really study the ways in which young people work with adults, and I've been involved in tobacco control since I was 17, so almost 20 years. Uprise is a fusion of social justice theory, the best of the empirical evidence, and my experiences as a tobacco control advocate. Uprise is a youth movement in the state of Colorado that seeks to build diverse youth leaders who understand that tobacco is a social justice issue. These leaders take action to contest the unjust policies and systems that have contributed to youth tobacco, nicotine use, and addiction. At least 20 organizations and schools across Colorado participate in the movement each year. We also support a leadership group called the Youth Action Board, who guides the movement. Social justice is applied to Uprise in 3 primary ways. First, youth discuss and examine individual experiences with and institutional causes of power, privilege, and oppression. Next, youth learn the ways in which tobacco and nicotine are social justice issues. Finally, youth take a social justice approach to tobacco by investigating root causes of tobacco use and contesting unjust policies that have contributed to the inequitable burden of tobacco and nicotine use and addiction. We have 21 youth coalitions across the state currently, as I spoke about. Each coalition is made up of 60 to 80 young people ages 12 to 24. Each group meets at least monthly, most meet weekly. An adult facilitator leads the group and helps to foster a sense of safety and promote participation and engagement. We have 4 staff in the movement. These staff help provide step-by-step guides or workbooks, training and technical assistance to each youth coalition, and swag materials such as t-shirts, palm cards, petitions, and stickers. Participating youth in our movement learn how to identify an issue, brainstorm solutions, engage partners, mobilize the community, and enact change. The movement is committed to empowering youth, particularly those who have been pushed to the margins, to find their voice and realize their abilities to create change. So next we're going to hear from Jordan in Kansas.
Hello, everybody. I'm Jordan Roberts, and I am the Youth Prevention Program Manager for the state of Kansas. I coordinate with which is the youth-led statewide tobacco prevention program that supports tobacco initiatives throughout the state of Kansas. My expertise lies in authentic youth engagement, tobacco prevention approaches, and adult youth partnerships. Resist is a statewide initiative that was reestablished in 2017 after a 5-year hiatus. Our program is genuinely youth-led by our Executive Youth Council, who really serves as the guiding body for the whole program. Council members establish our program's goals, and they also plan and implement statewide events and other activities. We now have 35 established Resist chapters throughout the state of Kansas, and chapters are made up of local youth advocates grades 6 through 12. And they mainly work on local activism, peer-to-peer education, and policy change to prevent youth exposure and use. We've gained a lot of momentum, I'm sure, as many of you have, in the wake of the vaping epidemic, specifically in the realm of schools. And in Kansas, we don't have a statewide tobacco and vape-free policy like at the state level. So it's up to every individual school to pass these kinds of policies. We did some data collection in 2017, and we found that only 1 in 3 Kansas schools have a comprehensive policy, with a lot of gaps being in the fact that they don't have language covering e-cigarettes and vape devices. And then they also allowed smoking areas for staff and visitors. So we found out that we have, some work to do. So in March of 2019, we developed the Kansas Vape Free Schools Toolkit in order to meet the demand of resources and tools needed to address vaping in Kansas schools. So this toolkit was designed for Resist chapters to utilize to pass comprehensive tobacco and vape-free policies in their schools. The toolkit also contains a wealth of other information about communications approaches, model policies, cessation resources, and more. You can find that toolkit by just Googling Kansas Vape-Free Schools. And now we're going to hear from Ashley in Montana next.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ashley. I am the Contract Liaison and Youth Engagement Specialist for the Montana Tobacco Prevention Program. I'll refer to it as MTOP from here on out. And I run a program called REACT, which is our youth prevention initiative for teens to stand up against big tobacco in the state of Montana. Kind of as Jordan said, in Montana, we're currently redesigning our program as well, and reestablishing it to be a program that focuses on youth development, with the emphasis on tobacco prevention as well. We call our participants reactors. So they stand up and they react, and that is our new call to action. We're really excited to have our youth participate in our tobacco-free rodeos and bring all the things that they know about tobacco prevention into their schools. And most of our schools in the state of Montana have certificates of tobacco excellence for their policies to be tobacco-free and now vaping-free. So we're very proud of that, and we look forward to continuing the work with our youth and our schools throughout the state of Montana.
Hey y'all, I'm Amy Schlichting. I've been in tobacco education through a variety of realms since 2006. As a corporate wellness director for a large corporation and then a corporate wellness consultant for various Nebraska-based businesses, I taught tobacco cessation courses and worked in workplace tobacco policy discussions. After working with adults for nearly 10 years, I took an opportunity to help young adults make decisions that can enhance their lifelong health and reduce the chance of participating in risky behaviors, and founded a peer-based education program at a small university. I recently joined the No Limits team as a part-time staff member. I'm excited to bring the knowledge from my experiences to a younger audience and help Nebraska's youth understand the dangers of tobacco. My coworker Molly is also joining us today, and she is truly the brains behind No Limits, and we're going to hear from her now.
Hi, I'm Molly Kincaid. I'm the No Limits Project Coordinator. In addition to my role at No Limits, I also serve on the Youth Engagement Alliance National Leadership Team, where I mentor coordinators from all across the country. I've been involved in tobacco prevention and control work for over 15 years, starting out on the No Limits Youth Board while I was in high school. Serving on the Youth Board has completely changed my life. It helped me find my voice by giving me the knowledge, skills, and abilities to educate and empower my peers. I absolutely fell in love with this line of work and couldn't picture myself doing anything else. No Limits is Nebraska's statewide youth-led tobacco prevention movement. It's all about youth empowerment and social change. By using activism, No Limits is bringing Nebraska teens together to minimize the tobacco industry's impact in Nebraska. No Limits started in 2001 with a group of teens realizing that they were being targeted by big tobacco and wanting to do something about it. Over the years, No Limits has grown from a handful of teenagers in one town to reaching over 183 communities in Nebraska with well over 100 active youth at any given time. No Limits is open to any Nebraska youth ages 12 to 18 in grades 7 through 12. Despite turnover due to graduation and sponsor retirement, we typically have anywhere from 10 to 15 active community or school groups that come to at least one of our big statewide events and do activism in their community every year. Most of these groups are at schools. This can be either from an existing group such as SAD, FCCLA, HOSA, etc., or they can be groups that are specifically formed to do tobacco prevention work, including attending No Limits events. Each year, No Limits hosts two large statewide events, the Activism Summit and Kick Butts Day. We always try to have our Activism Summit around tobacco prevention and cessation holidays, such as the Great American Smokeout or We'll Know Tobacco Day. In addition to statewide events, our board will decide whether they want to focus on doing short 1-hour outreach trainings in as many communities as possible, or doing day-long regional trainings where we bring in youth within a 2-hour radius to one location. A few other unique things that No Limits does is not only travel to, but also help curate the activism activities that are at the Philip Morris USA shareholders meeting in Richmond, Virginia each year. We also offer two types of mini grants. Our traditional mini grants give groups with a sponsor the ability to create and develop their own activism activity. If it is approved, they receive funds that are loaded on a Visa gift card to purchase all of the necessary supplies. The other type of mini grants are our toolkits. These have all of the necessary supplies to do certain types of activism activities that are in a box that is mailed to groups both with sponsors and without that are trying to create a group in their community. Our most popular toolkits are our recruitment toolkit and our cigarette butt cleanup. Next, we're going to hear from Abby in North Dakota.
Hello, my name is Abby Erickson, and I'm the Community Programs Coordinator for the North Dakota Department of Health. I facilitate the tobacco policy work to the local public health units across the state. This includes expanding the current youth work, as well as working to cultivate youth outreach within our state. Prior to this role, I worked as a clinical respiratory therapist and program instructor. Break Free is our North Dakota 100% authentic youth movement that we are just starting. It represents the tobacco prevention, youth policy, and advocacy work occurring all across the state. It is developed from a strong local area group, and now we are working to expand it throughout the state. These statewide efforts are still in their initial stages, but there has been some excellent progress over the last year. One of our main activities for this group is our Youth Action Summit, and that'll be coming up in October. It's our annual event for students in 6th to 12th grades to learn, engage, and act on tobacco policy initiatives. This fall will be the first time the summit is being held in 2 locations in the state, and this is going to help maximize our outreach to all the youth. Last but not least, we're going to hear from Chantel in Oklahoma.
Greetings from Oklahoma. My name is Chantel Hartman. I currently serve as the Tobacco Use Prevention Program Coordinator for the Oklahoma State Department of Health's Center for Chronic Disease Prevention and Health Promotion. In addition to the youth advocate and youth engagement aspect of my position, my role also includes managing a statewide tobacco retailer density and point of sale data collection initiative, and also a collaborative comprehensive cancer control and tobacco prevention initiative that's aimed at reducing legal tobacco sales to youth. And I also provide technical assistance to our agency partners. So historically, SWAT in Oklahoma, or Students Working Against Tobacco, youth teams in Oklahoma have been instrumental in local and state level tobacco control change. And one of those examples is our 24/7 tobacco-free schools initiative. So initially, Tobacco 24/7 in Oklahoma was limited between 7 a.m. and 4 p.m. But due to the work of our trailblazing youth, that was changed at the local level, which ultimately led to a statewide 24/7 Tobacco-Free Schools Act, which also includes e-cigarettes and vapor products. So youth engagement in Oklahoma promotes, supports, and mobilizes youth and young adults to influence and strengthen innovative wellness, which includes tobacco, physical activity, and nutrition initiatives that impact the life of Oklahomans. So although SWAT has evolved to include an overall wellness approach, the mission still stands: empower and unite youth to resist and expose tobacco's lies while changing any attitudes towards tobacco. So the unique thing about our structure is that at the state level, especially at the state health department, we serve in a capacity building role. And we also basically assist the independent groups throughout Oklahoma, which include adult partners who are basically the youth capacity building and youth, not necessarily keepers, but their assistants throughout the whole process with their strategic planning and implementation. So each year, our office has what we call the roadshow season, which is basically May through August. And that's our opportunity to go out and facilitate youth engagement and tobacco prevention capacity building workshops throughout the state. I lead most of those workshops, but I also work with various organizations throughout our state, including our Oklahoma Tobacco Settlement Endowment Trust and their grantees, to support these youth-led efforts in multiple settings. So that includes communities, schools, work sites, and healthcare facilities. So the great thing about it is that we're getting a chance to rebuild our state youth engagement focus, and we're hoping that we can piggyback off of the historic success of SWAT. So we're aiming for a hybrid program that's going to allow youth and adult partners to also lead those statewide wellness policies and programs, but also include cultural sensitivity, positive youth and young adult development through self-efficacy, youth, cultural awareness and sensitivity, and leadership. So I look forward to telling you more about how we work with our traditional and non-traditional partners to make sure we have sustainable success in Oklahoma. So I'm going to pass it back to Jill, and she's going to start our questions for us.
Great job with intros, and thank you for sharing just a little bit about your program. We have 4 set questions that I sent an evaluation out to our contractors to help decide. So our first question is, how do you get youth interested in being involved in the youth program in your state? We're going to hear from Ashley first about this.
Hey guys, in Montana, we like to offer a variety of activities for our teens, specifically with our yearly mini grants that we have. We're actually in the process of receiving our mini grants this year, so I'm really excited to see what our kids are coming up with. In addition to that, we also have our tobacco-free rodeo, and we're very proud of that. We offer scholarships to our students who participate in rodeo and who are actually the athletes, and then also participants as well that are watching or just helping get the animals ready. It's really exciting. In addition to that, we do different activities in our local counties with the help of our tobacco prevention specialists. We do a lot of logins up in the northern part of our state after different activities for teens to do a huge event for just tobacco-free. One of our examples would be an ultimate frisbee, glow in the dark. So it's really fun for the teens just to have a safe space to come play an awesome game in the dark, and it's tobacco-free. So we're really proud of the events that our TBS put on throughout the year, and I look forward to creating our own statewide board to work against big tobacco. So we're really looking forward to it, and that's what we take care of in Montana.
All right, well, this is Amy with No Limits in Nebraska. We offer fun, engaging events across the state that students in grades 7 through 12 can attend for free. We even provide the transportation to get them there. Events include information about how they can get involved in No Limits and advocate for tobacco prevention in their community, interactive workshops on tobacco's impact on health and the environment, and opportunities to get to know each other better. The friendships made at our events are absolutely incredible, and I firmly believe that's what keeps our students involved in talking about No Limits when they return to school. That way it's not just an educational event, it's truly an empowerment building movement that we're creating across the state.
So this is Heather with Uprise. We really seek to recruit young people who have been pushed to the margins. So our recruitment efforts are multifaceted. The first piece is we provide funding or grants to youth-serving organizations and schools who have a track record of serving young people who have mental health challenges, youth who have been involved in the legal system, young people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender, youth who have been pushed out of traditional schooling, youth who live and don't know where their next meal or food is coming from, and young people of color. We provide tailored technical assistance to each of the organizations to help transform their recruitment efforts, to look for those non-traditional leaders. So the grants that we provide are $5,000. Each organization gets that in return for hosting a youth coalition for a year. $3,800 of those dollars are specifically designated to be used by a plan devised by the young people. So youth can choose to get paid for their participation, can choose to have food and beverages at each meeting, or do something really fun together like parasailing or an escape room. We give youth the skills to learn about budgeting so they not only have access to a pool of funds, but they learn a fundamental living skill. In the first year of the movement, 100% of the young people that we've served have one or more marginalized identities. All the youth coalitions who participated in the first year are returning for the second year of the movement. And we also offer a myriad of opportunities to get involved in other efforts, whether that's state level policy, local level policy, getting involved with media campaigns in our state. So getting involved in Uprise is a door or window to additional opportunities that can really deepen their commitment to public health, advocacy, and equity.
All right, moving on to our next question. What tips do you have for beginning a youth group to do tobacco prevention and control outreach? Chantel is going to share with us first.
Okay, so basically one of the best tips that we can give is, of course, meeting our youth and young adult partners where they are. And in Oklahoma, we've had the great opportunity to relate to not only where our youth and young adult partners live, work, learn, and play, but we've also tried to really look out for opportunities where they also worship. So some of the wellness work that we've done with our other programs, such as Certified Healthy, which is a certification program across all sectors that basically give them checklists and opportunities to make sure that their environments are the most safe and offer the healthiest opportunities for healthier living. And also our Empower program, which is our grant funding aspect of our division for priority populations. So that has helped us work with youth and congregations on tobacco prevention and awareness. So for example, we've had congregations reach out to us to come speak to not only their youth during their summer programs, but also speak with their leadership about how they can expand and sustain tobacco awareness and policies. So whenever we go out and do this work, we also really try to sit down with them and see where they can expand their current youth initiatives and also youth engagement, and really try to explain to them how it can be sustainable to include youth in that decision making, but also really start to look at untraditional ways to have the congregation or the community around the congregation look at how youth are advocates and assets to the opportunities for change. So we have an upcoming opportunity to speak at a local congregation's youth regional conference. And one of the things that we'll be discussing with those youth is how to incorporate tobacco prevention into their efforts. But we also are going to sit down with those youth in smaller groups and really highlight to them that they have an opportunity to develop their own youth engagement aspects while they are participating with the community. So of course we emphasize those expandable but also small sustainable steps and including youth in those efforts. And that's how we found that youth tobacco control can actually really have a start in non-traditional ways.
This is Jordan Roberts, and similar to what Chantel said, the first thing that I would suggest to someone who is looking for some tips is to go where young people are. We've found here in Kansas that outreach to schools is really key in reaching young people because that's where they spend the majority of their time. The recommendation that I always make to anyone who's interested in starting a new Resist chapter is to find an adult who works at the school who is already interested in supporting youth tobacco use and prevention. We've also had some good luck with people working at Boys and Girls Club. So Boys and Girls Clubs have been a really great local partner as well as 4-H clubs too. It's really important to take into consideration when scheduling things with young people. They're extremely busy schedules. So I would suggest making plans a couple months in advance to ensure more attendance. And then also if you can provide transportation, that's going to be really key in making sure that more people turn up, more young people are able to come. And also the last thing I would suggest is to provide them with food if you're able, because they will never turn down an opportunity to eat, that's for sure. So those are some of the few things that have been really instrumental in establishing higher functioning tobacco prevention chapters here in Kansas.
Yeah, this is Molly in Nebraska, and I completely agree with everything that Chantel and Jordan just said. I know that starting up a youth group to do tobacco prevention and control work can be really overwhelming. There's so many different decisions to make. You have to decide what comes first, finding the adults to help support the youth or finding some of the awesome youth leaders. And you have to think about things like whether you want a school-wide or more of a community or even county-wide group. I could spend hours going on and on about topics such as how often you should meet, where you should meet, how you create goals, etc. But if I had to think of the most valuable tip that I could give, it is figure out what the youth are interested in. Go out into your community and talk to youth. While we might have topics or things that we really want the youth to learn, it's way more important to take a second and hear about what their views and concerns are. They're the ones that are in the schools, at events, or truly being targeted as replacement smokers by big tobacco. Maybe they have seen an increase in a certain product use at their school by their peers, or maybe they're the ones that are really bothered by secondhand smoke and want a stronger tobacco-free policy enforced at their school or at a local park. Focus on what matters most to the youth and their community and build from there. Youth will know that their voice matters and feel more of a sense of ownership in the group and its success.
All right, our third question, how do you keep the youth program in your state youth-led rather than adult-led? We're going to hear from Jordan first.
Awesome, yeah. So the Resist program here in Kansas is genuinely youth-led by our Resist Youth Council. They like to be called the Executive Youth Council. So I got to get that in my mind now. But the Executive Youth Council is made up of up to 10 to 15 students representing all regions of Kansas. These young people really are the guiding body of the program. They determine mid-year and end-of-year goals. They help plan, schedule, and implement statewide events and trainings, and they're also very instrumental in policy change at not only the local level, but at the state level as well. I do my best to stay out of their way. I really want to let them get creative and take the reins. I see my role as the facilitator and the convener. My job is to make sure everyone checks their email and has a right to and from meetings and events. They're the ones generating the ideas, coming up with the plans on how to address issues that they see are most pressing in their communities and statewide. It's important to keep in mind that young people are completely capable of determining project goals, contributing to activity ideas, and advocating for policy change.
This is Molly here in Nebraska again. The best part about No Limits is that it is truly youth-led. There is a youth board composed of 8 to 15 high school students from all across Nebraska that serves as the entire movement's guiding body. The No Limits Youth Board choose what topics they want to focus on each year. During the first in-person meeting every summer, they develop the key messages and supporting facts. Once that is finalized, the board works with Firespring, which is the agency that houses the No Limits program, to develop theme graphics that are used for promotion throughout the year. In addition to all of that, the youth board takes charge on most of the other aspects of the program, including curating all the social media content, doing interviews with the media outlets, creating and presenting all the presentations and speeches that are given at our events. This can mean anything from giving the presentations at our activism summits to the speeches on the Nebraska State Capitol building steps during a Kick Butt Day event. Or if a school requests a regional training, Amy and I get all of the required information for the presentation, but then we work with the board to actually create that presentation, and I go out and I pick up 1 to 3 youth board members, and they're the only ones that talk during the entire presentation in that community. High school students apply for and serve up to 4 year-long terms on the No Limits Youth Board. The board elects 2 co-chair representatives and a secretary. In addition to the committee chairs, there's 3 different committees that we do in No Limits: our activism, event engagement, and social media, and each board member is required to be a part of this. Since we are a statewide movement, we can only get our full youth board together 2 or 3 times outside of our big statewide events. So we have to host monthly conference calls, and we rely heavily on technology like Facebook Messenger to keep in contact with each other. High school students can get extremely busy between school, sports, clubs, and work, so we implement a point system to help relieve stress while holding everyone accountable. While Amy and I do a lot of the behind-the-scenes work, such as maintaining the website and planning all of the events logistics, our main job is to implement the youth board's vision for the year. No Limits wouldn't be what it is today without the passion of some of the amazing young youth in Nebraska.
The most important aspect of ISTEP is really that it's youth-led rather than adult-led. So this naturally creates ownership of the program among youth, and it also brands an identity for them to share, and they really appreciate that. The biggest way we keep ISTEP youth-led is having a youth executive council, which, by the way, I noticed we have 3 council members on the webinar right now, so shout out to Peyton, Bo, and Evan. Awesome job joining. The council communicates through text and email the majority of the time, and we have many meetings throughout the year through Google Hangouts or a couple in person too. So all ideas for ISTEP are bounced off this core group. They plan 4 street marketing events each year, and they actually lead our annual summit, which is very impressive. My role is to listen to their ideas and make them happen. While maybe I can't completely do their shoot for the stars idea, I just kind of have to break it down and see what I can come up with to make it happen. And this really helps the youth feel heard while increasing ownership and the buy-in of the program to naturally keep it going. I do admit putting program decisions into the hands of youth council members definitely has its challenges and tests my patience at times, but I truly feel ISTEP has sustained over the years because it is youth-led. So when I first started in my position about 2 years ago as youth coordinator, my first instincts when working on the program was just to do it myself and check it off my to-do list. But I've had to learn to go to the youth first, allow them time to answer, and find ways to put their ideas into action. This isn't always the easiest, but in the long run, the youth stay more invested and feel proud to see their ideas implemented. So we've made it to our last question. What has been the most successful outreach event your youth program has done? Go ahead and share first, Heather.
Yeah, this is Heather from Uprise, and our movement reignited in Colorado in 2018 with renewed funding from our state health department and our tobacco tax dollars. So it was our first year as a movement, but our statewide activity, we create in collaboration with our youth board, our adult advisory board, and the staff. We all work together through a youth adult partnership model to create an event. And our young people really wanted to create an event that explicitly linked the tobacco and the vape industry together, and really described all the various social justice issues related to tobacco's misuse of power. So our statewide activity provides a unified tobacco message that is implemented by all of our coalitions during a specific time period. The statewide activity is on top of all the other activities that they're doing to identify their root causes. So we just all do it together, but they're also doing individual work. The statewide activity, as I said, was collaboratively designed. These kits were mailed to youth coalitions with specific instructions on how to implement the activity. Our activity for the very first year of our movement was called Web of Influence. Each coalition received a large web that had tobacco and vape industry at the center, and 30 different cards that highlighted different social justice issues related to tobacco and vape companies. For example, we described how tobacco farming and curing relates to deforestation, and how the tobacco industry contributes to debt bondage and child slavery in Malawi. Coalitions invited community members to place one of the 30 cards on the web. The goal was for community to see how the tobacco and vape industry abuses power and creates harm to our bodies, our environment, and developing nations. A secondary goal, again, was to link the tobacco industry to the vape industry. The coalitions planned and executed their event April 1st through April 20th of last year. They hung these Web of Influence banners in community settings and encouraged all youth and adults in their community to learn about the tobacco and vape industry's abuse of power. Once a community member participated in the Web of Influence, they signed a small Post-it note that said, "I will inform others and use my Web of Influence to inform how the tobacco industry abuses power." So not only were they learning, but they were committing to sharing their information with their web or spheres of influence. In total, we reached over 1,000 youth and adults, had 4 news stories, and these activities were implemented in school walkways, outside of youth centers, and during community events such as Queer Prom.
Thank you. This is Chantel from Oklahoma. One of the most successful outreach events that we've had for our youth at the state level was our Oklahoma Taking Down Tobacco Boot Camp, which was a collaboration with the Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids about 1.5 years, almost 2 years ago. So over 100 youth, their adult partners and some advisors were able to enjoy this free, thank you to Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids' generosity, this free full day of training on messaging, general tobacco control media, and also other areas, which also included meeting other youth from across the state and finding out that other people were also interested in some of the work that the youth in their community were doing. So one of the highlights of that was to have so many youth from the communities of, that are often targeted by the tobacco industry being able to attend, voice their concerns, and also take these resources back to their community. So for us, it was just an awesome thing to see when you have so many youth in a room whose adult partners just, they took the step back, they let them have the highlight, they let them have center stage, and to also put them in a room with a national partner and see that people are interested in what youth in Oklahoma really think. So the youth were actually able to give real-time feedback about taking down tobacco in its very early stages. So to bring you forward to this year, what we're working on is the National Day of Action in Oklahoma, and we're hoping to partner with the American Cancer Society's Cancer Action Network. It's the very beginning stages of planning and really working out what those details are, but the highlight is going to be youth actually having the voice to determine what that looks like, and also a few up and coming tobacco awareness days as well. So we're also internally leveraging some resources to make sure that youth in Oklahoma are also trained on point of sale data collection, so that they can not only just collect data in their communities, but also train others, including adults, and be some of those resources that we leverage throughout the state when we go out and do capacity building. And they'll also be involved in the youth cessation resource development as well. So again, that's one of the opportunities where we've had to work across all sectors and include all different levels of youth, whether their capacity is lower, they're just starting out, or some of those seasoned youth groups that we have throughout the state. Thank you.
As you said, this is Abby, and in North Dakota, we have been able to take a local youth coalition and expand it to a statewide platform for youth engagement. The highlight of the movement this far has been our Tobacco-Free Day that we held at the Capitol in partnership with the American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, and Tobacco-Free North Dakota, which is our statewide tobacco-free coalition. The youth were able to join with tobacco-free proponents from across the state and learn about the legislative process and discuss current tobacco legislation that was going on at that time. ACS CAN presented a hook, line, and sinker training, and the youth were prepared to tell their stories, to share, and learn how to communicate and advocate effectively. They were able to take that learning and the training and meet with representatives and senators, as well as the Lieutenant Governor of North Dakota. He joined the students for lunch, and he gave them a chance to share their message and present the information that they found most meaningful to them. To complete the day, the youth were able to join the legislators as guests seated on the floors in both chambers and participate in the afternoon session. Many of these students who attended this day have become champions in their local communities and have initiated local initiatives for changing policy, including flavor ordinance bans that they've proposed and T21 efforts. Thank you.
So now we have time to take questions from everyone, and we'll take questions through the chat box first, so go ahead and get those started. If you're joining by the phone, we'll give time at the end of the section. And when you're asking a question, let us know if your question is for someone specific or the presenters. We can all just kind of jump in when we feel like we have something to share. We have about 15 minutes, and my fabulous coworker, Garen, is going to help with this portion too. So thank you, Garen.
You're welcome, Jill. Any questions? We can. While we're waiting for people to get questions, I'd like to give props to all of our presenters for taking time out of their day and sharing with each other. This is pretty awesome. And Molly mentioned the Youth Engagement Alliance, the national organization. So if you're interested in learning more, check them out or talk to Molly about that. A wonderful organization of youth coordinators in tobacco control from all over the nation.
Hey, I'm sorry. Yeah, this is George Belitzos from Iowa. I'm the chair of the Tobacco Prevention Control Commission, and let me tell you how proud I am of our youth who are very ably represented on the commission itself and are doing great work. I do have a question. I was really interested to hear about those 30 cards on social justice issues. And I overheard you say that you made a link between the tobacco industry and the vape industries. And as you were describing the cards, you mentioned labor trafficking issues, and I just wondered what kinds of other issues, social justice issues, are on those cards, and also if you're willing to share those cards.
This is Heather from the Uprise Youth Movement in Colorado, and some of the cards will be on our website, which launches on October 4th. We're a new movement, and we really wanted our website to, host the stories of young people, so we needed to be in existence for a year before we developed it. But we included issues like deforestation, tobacco farming, green tobacco sickness, which is the sickness that children who work in farms or people who are exposed to high levels of nicotine that is absorbed into the skin get. We talked about how the tobacco industry funded the last presidential campaign and their level of contributions that they've made to bodies and individuals at the government. We talk about how electronic smoking devices, the batteries, the lithium-ion batteries and other chemicals in those the devices are not being disposed of properly and are really a kind of a new threat to our ongoing climate concerns. We talk about how the tobacco industry targets folks in their community through social media, through gas stations and marketing. We talk about mental health and how the tobacco industry provided free tobacco products to people who were receiving psychiatric care. So we really try to look at this through when did the tobacco industry abuse power? Obviously, there are just numerous examples of that. And I think instead of the health message, which I think our young people say they've heard, that this is something they've never heard about before or never even considered. How, in Colorado, in the US, Human Rights Watch in 2016, I believe, posted a report about child labor in Kentucky. So it's not like it's always outside of the United States, but in fact, children were working to harvest tobacco even in the US. Mm-hmm. So whether or not we can share those cards, I'll chat internally, and then we can reach out to folks who participate in this webinar if we are able to share those. I just want to check with our colleagues here. We haven't really discussed that.
Well, I think the way you have broadened the issue and the concerns is really great, and getting into these social justice, climate change, trafficking, abuse of people and the environment. That's something young people are very concerned about. And I think underscoring those things and making the connection really should bring in a lot more young people to be concerned about tobacco and vaping. So I think that's a terrific series of cards. I would really like to see them. Good for you. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Heather and George. We have another chat question that came in from John about asking for the vaping program the Kansas groups uses, and Jordan sent a link to that. So be sure to check out the chat box for that information. The another question that has come in was, and I guess Molly and or Heather, can you give us, or of course anybody, but can you give us tips on how to help set goals, how the youth set goals for their group, and the key to bringing youth, setting them up instead of adults?
Yeah, this is Molly. I can go ahead and attempt to answer that question. I think one of the biggest things is to make sure that the youth have a pretty good foundation or knowledge base of tobacco prevention efforts. So we require our youth board to do all the different taking down tobacco courses prior to attending our first in-person training for the youth board. And then we spend a couple of days actually going in depth over a bunch of the different products, and then they can hear all about the different aspects and pick what they are interested in. And then we help guide them and facilitate them to narrow it down to how there's more of a call to action or a key message that they want to focus on, and the goals to help attain them off of that.
Hi, this is Chantel from Oklahoma. Some of the trainings that we do, of course, are during the school days. So a lot of the adult partners and the teachers are actually with them. So one of the things that we've started to do is put the teachers and the adult partners and the youth in separate rooms when we can. And of course, we make sure that that's a priority. And the adult partners and the educators talk about contract things and budgeting and that whole issue. And we put the youth in a big room together, and we do sticky boards across the room, and we basically just ask them their concerns. Like, what are your concerns? And they use sticky notes on the sticky boards, and we go from there, and we kind of let them map what those concerns are, where they lie in particular places. Do they apply to physical activity, nutrition, tobacco, that whole gamut. And once we allow them a little time to digest what that means, we really kind of go through a youth-friendly form of what strategic planning looks like, what short-term, intermediate, long-term goals look like, and really planning out what those action steps are throughout. So a lot of what we do is try to keep them separated so that they actually can hear each other's voices, but not necessarily be so concerned about what the youth partner or what the teacher, what they're going to say. Are they in the back of the room trying to, sway things? And usually our adult partners and our teachers are very, very much giving the youth freedom to do that. But we found that putting them in a separate room really does make a difference, and allowing the youth to actually see what some of those problems are helps with the mapping process a lot. So that's one of the activities that we do.
Awesome. Was anybody else singing "You Got to Keep Them Separated" by The Offspring when you were separating? No, it's just me. Okay, that's fine.
This is Heather with the Uprise Youth Movement. And one thing that we do is go through an activity. It's called the Predictors of Tobacco Use. And so we use some of our Healthy Kids data, which is funded by marijuana money. And they have done surveys, which is similar to the youth survey done by CDC, the Healthy Youth Survey. And so we use those questions plus some additional ones. And so we have a large pool of data that demonstrate to us that young people who experience a mental health problem, young people who are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender and experience discrimination at home or at school, youth who don't have an adult they can talk to, youth who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Those youth are, anywhere between 2 and 5 times more likely to use tobacco or nicotine than their peers. So we do a process where our young people select one of those predictors of tobacco use, and then they do a root cause analysis process called the 5 Whys, which is available in the literature and is described well in a study. I can follow up with that information as well. But essentially, they get to what they find is one of the root causes of tobacco and nicotine use. So it's about scaffolding and then introducing them, I think similar to what both the other presenters have said, is that it's about providing them the tools which we use in other spaces, whether it's backwards planning or strategic thinking or criteria-based decision-making, to be able to come with a plan on how they're going to address, in our case, the root cause. So the root cause analysis process is another tool that they get to put in their tool belt, but also leads them to having a deeper understanding of why young people might be using tobacco or nicotine, and not because they're a bad person, but in fact, they might be having an unresolved mental health challenge, or they might feel unsafe at school. So trying to really deepen that level of understanding and commitment.
Heather, thank you for that. And another message came in on the chat to me, and I know it applies to you, Heather. I don't, and you mentioned it, it's the marijuana issue. What are the challenges or if there are benefits to trying to do tobacco control in a state where recreational marijuana use is legal? And forgive me if I'm not fully up to all the other states and your marijuana legality laws, but I know Colorado is. So can you go into that, since you mentioned some of the marijuana monies helping what you do?
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Sharon Tracy, and I'm here with Heather. I am the Youth Engagement Specialist with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, our tobacco program. And yes, it's really a sort of a fine line when we're doing youth tobacco and youth engagement for tobacco advocacy and thinking about the legalities of marijuana. We work closely with our marijuana program on prevention. And one of the things we are currently doing is to do a media campaign that's funded by a variety of different programs that are youth related or youth serving. And so we have this area where we do want to address all of these factors, because we do realize, or risk factors, because we do realize that tobacco use for youth don't exist in a vacuum. And so we have to address all of these other issues and risk factors, including marijuana. And so for our tobacco prevention and resources, we have tried to work with, or we are working with the marijuana program to have some resources that address the use of both tobacco, nicotine, and marijuana. For our schools particularly, we have an alternative to suspension program for youth who are caught violating the tobacco-free schools policy. And the alternative to suspension program is focused on tobacco use, but it also addresses marijuana use as well. So we are trying to work with our marijuana program to come up with more precise resources that youth has sort of like a two-prong resource basket or toolkit, where if they are caught using any substance, that they can be referred to sort of the most relevant and the most effective program that would address their use.
Terrific. Go ahead, anyone else? Well, we have about 3 minutes, so if there's any other questions that someone would like to put in the chat box and or just unmute yourself and ask, I would invite you to do that now. Well, hearing none, Jill.
Okay, I just want to give a big shout out and thank you to our presenters today. This is an awesome collaboration just across states and programs, and I think it really is the best way for us to learn the best methods of working with youth. And I know I personally appreciate the networking opportunity. So we'll leave this slide up in case someone wants to jot down contact information, but keep in mind if you put your email in the chat box, I will be following up with everyone's contact info and the recorded webinar once it's ready. I'm hoping for next week. And we can follow up with questions once you have that contact information and any resources that you're curious about too. So with that being said, thank you for attending today's webinar and truly being committed to supporting youth leadership and wanting to learn more about it for tobacco control. And you can log off whenever you're ready.